RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained on this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice. An appearance on this show is not necessarily an endorsement. And as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of Comfy Sunday. As always, I'm your host, RP. Joining us live in the studio tonight, my good friend and co-host, Methods M3 himself. And in the second hour, another good friend of the program, Nate Cain, Clinton Foundation whistleblower. A particularly timely event in history, considering the fact that we've just learned that Durham has taken over the Huber investigation. I hope everybody out there is having a great night tonight. Hope your Sunday has been as comfy as it possibly can be. Sorry guys, I just realized this slow chat was on for a long time. Methods and I are going to be having a conversation about some of the things affecting the world that have happened over the last couple of days, not least of which is President Trump's diagnosis. I know there's a lot of theories out there right now. Nothing wrong with spitballing on the true nature of reality. Do me a favor, everyone. Sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a very brief word from our sponsor. I know just how important collagen is for the body. 70 to 90% of your skin, joints, tendons, and bones are all made of collagen. Your gut depends on it. Even your hair and nails contain collagen. I also know that after 20 years of age, collagen production decreases by about 10% every decade, which is why I decided to start taking ageless multi-collagen. I just add 1 scoop of it to whatever I'm drinking in the morning, like my coffee or protein shake. And in less than a month, I've experienced younger looking skin, more vibrance, and more energy. I've seen a real difference in the appearance of my skin and hair when I look in the mirror. Ageless Multi-Collagen works by providing powerful nutritional support that promotes your skin, hair, nails, joints, bone, teeth, and gut health. There's also none of those nasty ingredients I hate like GMOs, fillers, or artificial ingredients. Plus, it's tasteless, odorless, and it mixes super smooth. You can get Ageless Multi-Collagen for 51% off, plus free shipping, by going to healthwithredpill.com or click the link in the video description or pinned comment below. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, thank you so much everyone for sticking around. Methods, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good. Just, crossing my fingers, making sure that we don't catch the digital Rona that you can get doing these Zoom calls like we do, a la McKay. But yeah, man, I'm doing good. I'm excited about the show. Nate Cain's always a great conversation, and we got a lot of good things to talk about. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great, definitely. Been having a good weekend. Red Pill girlfriend's in town. We're just hanging out, been walking the dogs, relaxing. Just got done eating dinner. And I, too, am extremely excited to welcome Nate Cain back to the program. Like I said in the intro, very, very good time to have him back on. So I'm glad everything worked out. Let me just say, if you guys wouldn't mind, please consider liking and sharing the show. If you can help us get it out, that would be so awesome, because we all know that this platform is not regularly in the habit of sending out notifications to all of my 263,000 subscribers. In fact, most of those people don't ever get notifications at all. So I require the help from you guys, my audience. It is a big deal. Every time you guys do it, help amplify the message, and it really does more than you can possibly know. Now, also, I want to say thank you to Ageless Multi-Collagen for sponsoring the show. Once again, Real Red Pill Girlfriend is making me some coffee right now, and I told her to throw some in there. So, Methods, obviously, I think the biggest news of what's going on is President Trump's diagnosis. It was, well, I mean, I guess you could say that it was timed rather well. There is, of course, an air of mystery surrounding it. You know, how did this happen? It looks like it came from the Cleveland debate, which was just held, but somehow mysteriously, only top-level Republicans seem to be diagnosed with it.
Yeah, it's definitely curious. I mean, if you're wondering about if what different theories are out there, you just have to sign into Twitter, and you'll see plenty of them. And I'm not trying to dog on them. It's just the 40,000-foot view on top of it. There's theories on both sides talking about what's going on here because it came out of left field that Trump had it and Melania had it. But watching the videos and stuff and taking it at face value that he did go to Walter Reed, he did do the drive-by, saying hey to everybody that's been sitting out there for hours, supporting the president. I mean, just watching his energy, like, yeah, he's not feeling well, but he's POTUS, right? He still feels like he's gonna be fine, and you can kind of feel it in your bones,
Oh, I'm right there with you, 100%. At not at any time have I considered that there's a possibility that President Trump might not make it. I see people, obviously people on the left, hoping that he doesn't. I mean, this is basically their fever dream. I think that it would have been a little bit closer to the reality that they were trying to manifest, if you will, if it was a little bit closer to the election. I mean, you have people like, I forgot her name, but that CNN reporter asking Nancy Pelosi about the continuity of government. Like, is it a possibility that, Nancy, you could be president? And they said that she was second in line. Excuse me, Nancy Pelosi, you're third in line. You are behind the president and the vice president.
Well, yeah, but that's still scary, right? I mean, the idea of her just being, that close to being the president when she's already a mess as the Speaker of the House. Now, I do want to say this. We had breaking news drop while you were doing your intro, and our buddy Season Pixels sent it over to me. Bill Barr, he hasn't tested positive, but he has now put himself in self-quarantine.
Yeah.
Out of caution. It's something that just broke recently. So that's what you'll see out there being shared about Barr. He's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat, so thank you for clarifying. I mean, there are so many different ways that this could go. I mean, clearly, the way that only Republicans seem to have contracted it seems to me like it could be a potentially orchestrated event, shall we say? People making sure that the Republicans end up getting sick and then they can't do their jobs, or maybe, they're hoping that perhaps they're going to expire, they're not going to make it. But, I mean, there is something to be said for the idea that this does some good things for President Trump. He works harder than anybody else I've ever seen or known in my life. I'm a workaholic, okay? I work 7 days a week and 12 to 18 hours a day. I love it. I absolutely love being occupied, and I love the feeling of accomplishment that you get. President Trump goes hard. He is working every single day, and he's been doing that since he walked down that escalator. I mean, we can go back and, say that he did probably the same thing in his personal life. But running the country is a little bit different scenario. So he's basically been going full tilt boogie since 2015. So now, this close to the election, it gives him the opportunity to kind of take a rest. Even though he's still working, and this is an excellent time to mention that President Trump being diagnosed with the beer bug is doing more work than Joe Biden has ever done at any point in his 47-year career. I think that every day since the debate, I mean, Joe Biden's called a lid. I don't think he's done any real events. I mean, he's had a couple of, smatterings of things here and there, but I mean, he's basically just been living in the basement, or you could say bunker, Joe Biden in his bunker. But President Trump is just going at it. He continues to run the country. He continues to even make these video addresses and send out notes letting people know how good he is. And but because of the fact that he's diagnosed with this beer bug, it forces all of the negative press on him to essentially just grind to a halt. You were telling me that Joe... Hold on, my coffee. Thank you. Joe Biden's negative advertising was halted, okay? So all of those negative things that were being said about him, and I'm sure Biden bought many, many millions of dollars worth of advertising on places like Facebook, just in Google AdWords. But that's all halted Now, and you had Rachel Maddow, somebody who I would never expect to say anything positive about the president, wishing him well and asking that that God bless both POTUS and FLOTUS. I never would have expected Rachel Maddow to say that. You know, so this makes him a sympathetic character. And it's also going to allow him to portray a far more empathetic character to the American public. Okay? You know, we're still bickering here in this country about whether or not we're going to open up. You know, all these mayors and these governors, you know, they're doing crazy things still. But President Trump, I mean, he actually being diagnosed with whatever this is, and, you know, notwithstanding, you know, the legitimacy of it, we're just going with the official narrative here. President Trump gets diagnosed. He experiences all of the symptoms, everything that comes along with it. He is still able to run the country, and he's able to come back to work, and he survives. You know, it's like one of the best movies that you've ever seen. You know, the president in the home stretch catches some dangerous communicable disease. He's able to power through, and then he comes back to continue saving the American public. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think that it's going to change the perspective of people watching him. Maybe people who are on the fence about whether or not they like him or they like what he's doing.
Right. And if anybody's spending time on social media that's on the fence about who they're going to vote for, this might be the first election that they're going to be able to vote in. They've seen what we've seen, how evil, you know, and sinister things that they've said about the president and his wife and their, you know, his family and everybody in his cabinet and stuff. You know, they see how bad they hate him, and they've known it for a while. A lot of people can't be under a rock to not see that going on. But this is right before, like during the election time, early voting is going on already. And they're saying, so yeah, I agree with you. Like optically, it does help the president in that case, because it is kind of like a pause button on them being full steam ahead, attacking him.
Right.
I know we see a lot of it because that's what gets shared around. But like you said, even Maddow understood the writing on the wall of how bad this looks to attack the president when they know they've got to know the recovery rate, even though they say everybody's going to die who gets it. You know, they've got to know he's going to be fine. He's going to get through this, and they're still going to have to deal with him on November 3rd. So, yeah, I mean, it helps. And to me, it kind of like now is something going to come out. And if we do want to get a little bit, quote unquote, conspiratorial, like what drops now after this, as Trump gets better, they said as early as tomorrow, he can be discharged, go back to the White House. He'll continue, you know, his therapy, but he could go back. What kind of narrative stuff can happen now to change the conversation? Because we've kind of had this pause button over the weekend, because it's been wall-to-wall coverage about the president being sick.
Right. You know, and so by doing that, by, you know, he can announce publicly, I've been taking this, and this. I recovered this quickly. This is not a death sentence. We do not need to lock ourselves up in you know, isolation and stop shaking hands, stop going out into public, stop going into businesses and restaurants and whatever it is. I think that it shows the true nature of what this is and what people can actually expect. I mean, he is front and center, like you said, on national television every single day, probably the most talked about man on the face of the earth, whether it's positive or negative. And he can say, look at what happened to me. This is what would happen to you more than likely should this happen in your own life. And I understand it. I've been there. And I know how important it is to keep going and to make sure that you have the best quality health care. Now, the things that I read that the president was taking, it's just normal, average, everyday stuff, something anyone could get, whether it was a combination of a prescription and, you know, over-the-counter stuff in a pharmacy, or just anybody with access to any type of healthcare. And now that they're so big on telemedicine, I mean, if President Trump wanted to, you know, he could make an executive order and say, you know, this cocktail, what I've taken, what helped me to recover in a matter of days, 48, 72 hours, this is and must be available to every single person here in this country. And then people can have a much better feeling about their own safety and security. And go ahead.
Yeah, to that point exactly. Now, real quick, somebody in the chat brought up that one of the treatments that he got was fast tracked to him, wasn't necessarily approved for full, like, you know, public consumption. I'm not too sure about that, but I saw a conversation. If the chat can help us with that, that'd be great. But to your point exactly, they've been attacking the president on how he's been handling, how he's been handling, running the nation and dealing with this virus going around. They're saying that he's failed people died. Hundreds of thousands of people died. Now he can speak from the mindset of a survivor in a sense.
Yeah.
Because they've been preaching to their public that this is a horrible virus. It's a big plague. We're going to remember this for generations. We're going to lose all these people. And now you've got a president who went through it. So it shows the humanity side of him to the general public. And he could speak from the side of survival. Like, yeah, I felt it. It felt, he could say, yeah, it felt terrible. Felt very sick. But then I got the right treatments with the right doctors and I was able to get through this. And you can too. And you have that. If you can have that platform, then it kind of takes the metaphorical bullets out of their gun.
Yes.
Because he could speak from a place that he couldn't, last week.
Exactly. And a vaccine wasn't necessary. Okay, so it's just things that we already have, or things that were already in play to treat various types of colds and flus and stuff. So there you go. The president was able to do it. We were, and then there's no argument to say that we can't open up the country until there's a vaccine that's widely available. It's just like you said, metaphorical bullets are on the floor. They're out of the gun. And I think back to Bill Clinton. Okay, when Bill Clinton, I think this is when he was running for president, he said, "I feel your pain." And that was like the soundbite. Everybody that was, big on Bill Clinton at that time was like, oh, Bill Clinton understands. He's one of us. He feels our pain. President Trump can literally say now, each and every one of you who have suffered whatever this is, I have truly felt your pain. I've been in your situation. And now that we know exactly what works, there is no need for anyone else to suffer in the same way. And then, don't forget, they are still going after states like Michigan and New York for what happened in the nursing homes. I think that Governor Cuomo has recently been trying to change the narrative on what happened there. It sounded the other day like he denied sending all of those patients into nursing homes. But I mean, the evidence speaks for itself. I mean, you've got, all of those deaths. You've got the FBI and the DOJ looking into it directly for that very reason. And you've got how many family members, hundreds of thousands of people, and each one of those people had a family. So, I mean, I don't think that's going to slide, and I don't think that they're going to be able to get past that. But I really honestly do believe that this is going to give President Trump an incredible advantage. And the timing couldn't have been better, okay? It's right before the election. Remember, people have a very short attention span, a very short memory. It happens at the beginning of October. He'll be able to be well and completely recovered for that second debate. Even if he walks into the debate, like pretending, like maybe he's a little weak, he can always, immediately take the gloves off and just go after Biden and completely take over. I think his performance in the second debate is going to be a lot stronger than what it was in the first. But it's going to be soon enough so it's right before the election, but not late enough that it will impact the election. I think that the Dems and the deep state, they would have been far happier if this would have happened much closer to the election. Because can you imagine on election night, maybe the press putting out a leaked image of President Trump in a hospital bed with an oxygen mask on, or a respirator, a machine breathing for him, because that kind of weakness is what will make somebody lose an election, and this is going to show his strength.
I totally agree with you on that. I think that they would have preferred for this to happen if we want to say the theory out there that this was organized, because this did happen very right-leaning as far as who's testing positive. That, to me, it would have been, having it happen that weekend. So I'm glad it's happening now. Now all the medication is in his system, justifiably so, and all that. Now, Ursula in the chat, good to see you here, friend, is asking, what are my thoughts? So our thoughts on this setting the stage for the October surprise. POTUS is well insulated, ... Okay, I have no problem doing a little bit of Occam's razor here as far as like having that. Of course, it does fit that profile of what our favorite Anon has said. He's well insulated, that people think that he's in all these different locations and he's like filming in front of green screens, which is fine. Have fun with your theories. Yeah, I agree with you, Ursula, on that as far as the insulated part. But how many times, I know you've been around for a while, how many times have we seen the same formula fit a different circumstance? So I'm not trying to shoot it down now, but the idea is that we don't know. And I don't think that we should even have a clue of an idea, at least for the most part, because then the other side would know and they could plan accordingly.
Yes.
Now, but I will say this. I will absolutely say this. I do believe, like, I'll say it this way. I will be very surprised if we don't have at least one, if not multiple, October surprises, quote unquote, before the election that none of us are thinking of.
Absolutely.
Or at least come from a different place that's not being talked about. They have Durham dangling out there like a carrot. And even though there's been reports that nothing's going to come out of there, well, that's just reports. We're supposed to have no leaks. But they're all focused on what Durham's going to do and what Barr's going to do. Now, Barr's insulated and self-quarantined, which is also cured. I think we're going to hear some things come out that we aren't really thinking about, or it's not being discussed lately. That's going to break during this as an October surprise, because we have to put them on deep. If you're dealing with the media, you're dealing with censorship on social media. You have the Democrats doing what they're doing, and like all these things, we have to put them on defense. And I think that we're going to get some stuff coming out that they're going to be like, oh no, we have to answer all these questions.
Yeah, I would expect like the major stuff to be dropping as close to the election as possible, because it's got to be close enough that something indefensible and something that they can't recover from. And once it's out, then the entire American public is going to be like, oh, no way. So I would be looking closer. But, to your point, if this was that scenario that a lot of people are theorizing it does give the cabal the opportunity to go ahead and play off it. I think that it's also just as likely that this is meant to make the cabal think that this is exactly what we've been waiting for. That POTUS is supposed to be insulated. I mean, who knows? There could be if this was an orchestrated event by the Patriots. It could have been done because there was some type of credible threat to POTUS, and perhaps they needed to, clear out his residence. They needed to clear, out dirty people in the administration. But again, there are just so many different things. Now, one of the reasons if you guys haven't been on social media for the last 48 hours, one of the reasons people are speculating that maybe there's some intrigue behind this is because yesterday in POTUS's address that he gave from Walter Reed, or what he said was Walter Reed, there was some anomalies with the footage. Okay, so if the president is going to be anywhere where there are going to be taking film or shooting live streams or anything like that, they're going to have a really nice camera. It's going to have a tripod, and those cameras are going to be steady cams. They're going to have like either a gimbal externally attached, or the lens is going to have a gimbal inside there. And what that does is the lens moves up, down, left, right, so that when it's filming its subject, the lens stays trained on that. So you can move the camera around like this, and it will maintain focus directly on that person. So the lens stays in the same place while the camera is moving all around it within reason. Now, for where President Trump was, I do believe that he would have been filmed using a tripod. But when you take a look at that footage, there is movement in the background, and for President Trump as well. So he's sitting at the desk. But Marfugel did just a short, 4-minute video showing that the location of the cabinets, the location of the president's shoulders, the flag, everything shifts just a little bit. Now, there's a couple of different reasons that would be. It could have been that somebody was filming him with a gimbal, and that person was moving around a lot. But I doubt that would happen, only because these people, the photographers and videographers that are working for POTUS, are probably top-notch, and they've got the best quality equipment. But if they were on a surface that was moving, then that would cause movement, and you would have slight shifting of where everything was. So that could have meant that POTUS was on Air Force One. That could have meant that maybe he was on the Comfort or the Mercy, something like that, a hospital vessel that was associated with Walter Reed. Or maybe he was just, on a boat or a different plane, something. I mean, it's kind of a moot point, because I don't think that it does anything necessarily. But I mean, we've been told before, we don't broadcast our moves, we don't give clues to the enemy. So maybe people were meant to think that POTUS was at Walter Reed, and perhaps he was getting treatment someplace else. Either way you slice it, he has made a public appearance, and And he also put out another video address. So I kind of wanted to show, first of all, that public appearance, and then Methods, I wanted to show the little video address that he released today, because it looks to me like it's in the same room, because you've got cabinets in the background, and it appears to be the same location, but I don't see the movement in the camera this time. So let's go ahead and here, you know what I'm going to do, Methods? I am going to actually share the screen so that you can see it, buddy, and then you'll also be able to hear it.
Yeah, look at you using Skynet to take over my world.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, you should be able to see that. You can see I got a new setup on the screen. And let me just share the computer audio as well. There we go.
President Trump.
All right, that audio is way loud.
Wow. That is incredible.
All right, so President Trump apparently leaves Walter Reed, and he does a drive-by. There are many, many people hanging out outside Walter Reed, paying homage to the president, wishing him well, candlelit vigils, prayers for him and Melania. And, you know, I just wanted to say how amazing this is. You know, he said yesterday in his video, almost a universally bipartisan support. I think that it's a very small number of people that are going after the president online. You've got some very high-level people from the Obama administration who are wishing him death. Clearly, lots of leftist Twitter accounts are wishing him ill will. But by and large, it's mostly people wishing him well. And I think this is really important, Methods, because it delineates clearly between these extremists on the left and anybody else in the country. Because if you are one of those people who maybe you didn't necessarily care for Trump, but now he's got the beer bug and it humanizes him for you, and you think to yourself, you know, okay, you know, I guess maybe I'm a little more inclined to think he's a good guy. And then you look online and you see these insane people wishing him, you know, to never wake up, never recover, you know, go on to bye-bye land, see you in heaven, Don Trump. And I think that all of those people who might have been on the fence are going to look and say, I do not want to be associated with those people. Why would I want to be associated with these insane people? So, you know what? I'm actually going to align with these people right here, these wonderful Trump supporters right there, showing up to tell the president how much they love him and care about him. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree with that. Or at the very least, they just will be, you know, they just won't vote. Yeah, and that could be a thing too as well. But I mean, to kind of tie a bow on these theories out here, just because they've been all around everywhere, I'll say this: I've been told that he was on a boat. So I've been told that he's not at Walter Reed. He's on a boat. I've been with conviction. I've been told all this. He's on a boat. He's on a plane. He's at Camp David. He's under Camp David. He's in Air Force One. He's in Air Force One over Costa Rica. He's a clone. He's using a clone. He's using a body double. And I've been told all these things with complete conviction by people saying it's absolute fact. And all I really have is circumstantial evidence shown to me. Yeah. And obviously not all of those can be right. And then again, if we want to get into teleportation and all the things too that I see out there, then it becomes something that, okay, quite possibly. But to me, they can't all be right. And I do find it, I do appreciate things being discussed even in public as far as like theories and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like I was told these were all facts individually. Mm-hmm. And I would love to put them all on a panel and let them debate each other, but that's not really feasible. I'll just say this, and Red Pill, we were talking about this before the show. Like there is still a public narrative here that Trump is there. Mm-hmm. He's being treated. He has the Rona. He's doing better. He could be discharged as early as tomorrow. And based off the videos, to me, he was 95%. Sure. You could kind of tell, like, in his voice is a little weak at times. You kind of see he's a little tired, but then again, he's just, you know, he likes to be all over the place. Maybe he's just antsy to get out and keep campaigning and helping out, you know, making America great again. But there is that narrative, and I'm all for people discussing ideas and stuff, but like I was told with conviction, those were all true. Right. And so it is what it is. And I mean, if anything, that's why I haven't said too much about it this weekend. Cause to me, it's like, all right, I'm looking at what we're being presented and I'm good with that. You know, I'm good with watching that. And if anything else turns out, if we wake up in the morning and there's all the people we want being frog marched and he's just still sitting at Walter Reed eating Jell-O and signing executive orders, that's fine. I mean, okay, cool. I'll love it. It'll name everything. But we've been through this before, so I'm just not going to get my hopes up on certain things.
I feel you. I totally understand where you're coming from. Let me go ahead and show this new video that President Trump put out today, because it shows his condition. It shows that, in my opinion, like you said, he's 95%, little bit hoarse in the voice. Not bad at all, especially for somebody with a disease that the mainstream media has told us is going to end human civilization as we know it.
We're getting great reports from the doctors. This is an incredible hospital, Walter Reed. The work they do is just absolutely amazing, and I want to thank them all, the nurses, the doctors, everybody here. I've also gotten to meet some of the soldiers and the first responders, and what a group. I also think we're going to pay a little surprise to some of the great patriots that we have out on the street, and they've been out there for a long time, and they've got Trump flags, and they love our country. So I'm not telling anybody but you, but I'm about to make a little surprise visit. So perhaps I'll get there before you get to see me. But I just, when I look at the enthusiasm, and we have enthusiasm like probably nobody's ever had. Our people that love the job we're doing, we have more enthusiasm than maybe anybody. So it's been a very interesting journey. I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school.
Yep.
This isn't the let's read the book school. And I get it, and I understand it, and it's a very interesting thing, and I'm going to be letting you know about it. In the meantime, we love the USA, and we love what's happening. Thank you.
All right, so you can see here in those cabinets in the back, those look to me to be the same type of cabinets that we saw in that other video. And there's the table behind him. You know, they got some flags they can move around. What was most striking to me was the statement he just made that he went to school and that he's learned a lot about this. So now, anytime those talking heads on the left or Nancy Pelosi says, you know, oh, because science, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, he can say, I know exactly what I'm talking about because I lived it. You're the one who doesn't know what you're talking about. And he can say, you know, he's been doing everything safe. You know, he's been washing his hands, wearing the mask. You know, I mean, speaking of which, there is a report that John Solomon just put out. I want to talk about that in a moment. But, you know, he can point to everything. He did everything correct. He lived this situation. The people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all the Dems, all the talking heads in the mainstream media, they're the ones who haven't got a clue because they haven't went through it.
Right. And imagine the energy and excitement, even for us that can't be there, but when he does like the next, like a rally event, because you know, he'll do as many as he can, you know, imagine the energy and support of like, you went through what we've been told, like you said, is the worst thing ever to happen as far as health is concerned. And he's going to be out there showing his energy. That's presidential. Exactly. And what he's been doing, like the video you just showed, that's presidential. He took the time. He didn't put a lid at 9:15 in the morning. He's making sure that he's still connecting with his base, with his people, with the public. And also, yeah, I mean, that's all I really got to say. Besides, you know, you might want to check your Twitter DMs. You have quite plenty on the screen.
What?
You had 20 plus DMs. Man.
Oh, I got way more than that, dude. I mean, I don't, I can't keep up with them. So, I mean, I just like let myself go like a long time ago. So what I'll do is, you know, if I go into my Twitter, like if somebody says they sent me a DM, then I'll just look and see what's on the screen. And then, you know, I let myself go through them like once a week, you know, just I'll scroll through and just see if there's anything that looks pressing. But yeah, there's no way for me to keep up with it. I need to hire an assistant just to read my Twitter DMs. All right, so in relation to that story that John Solomon put out, you know, one of the biggest things that we've been told is wear your mask, wear your mask. You know, masks save lives, and we have to wear masks all the time. Well, in 2019, the World Health Organization did a study, and it found that there's no evidence that masks stopped the transmission of the flu. I mean, that's a bit of a bummer for their narrative, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, especially since I see commercials like my local commercials telling me, you know, I have to wear a mask. It's the right thing to do. Be patriotic, wear a mask. And then we've got reports like this coming out saying they don't really help, which we've all seen that. We've seen the videos of people blowing smoke through them while they're, just to kind of show they're not really catching everything. And then people wearing them around their necks and stuff. I mean,
just their chin.
Right. I mean, if anything, it's just a fashion accessory, but I think they're going to go, it's not going to last forever. People are tired of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, I saw an article last week, actually, something that like the COVID economy is coming to an end. The economy that's built up around masks, various levels of PPE, the face shields, hand sanitizer, all that stuff. At some point, that's going to come crashing down. And with it, the return of the typical economy that we're used to. I mean, we need to get people back to work. And as far as it stands right now, we still have no new stimulus bill because the Democrats have been squelching it every single time. I believe Steve Mnuchin was just mentioning it the other day. I think that President Trump is still looking at an executive order. And maybe that's going to be something he's more likely to do now that he's gone through the experience himself.
I think he will do a stimulus. Yeah. I think he will sign it directly. He said he's already been looking into it. And they keep stonewalling. They don't want to give Trump the win.
Yeah. And it's not before the election, right? Because, I mean, if he passed another round of stimulus before the election, I mean, there's a lot of people that would, who might have been sitting on the fence might go ahead and just say, yes, we're going to vote Trump.
They might do like they did the USMCA thing, and Pelosi will take credit for it. It's like, oh, here's the money. We're going to give it to you now. The Republicans are not in our way anymore.
Yeah. Not good. Not good. So, obviously President Trump gave a little tip that he was going to go ahead and do that drive-by. I got to say, I love that man. No Cuomo, okay? Absolutely love President Trump. Everything that he's done and continues to do for this country, his state of mind, his demeanor, everything that he does is just incredible and awe-inspiring. He is an incredible leader. He has just genius level intellect, and everything that he's done so far. This is why I trust him so much, because like you can maybe you don't see it at the time, but when you get that 40,000 foot view and you turn around and you look and you say, oh, that's why he did that. That's why he made those decisions, because A leads to B leads to C, and sometimes you can't see that far ahead, so you don't necessarily understand why he's doing what he's doing. But in retrospect, you can say, man, he is so smart. He's done just such amazing things. And this is why it's so important that we make sure that we vote on November 3rd, or if you have had the opportunity, maybe vote early already. But keep it up, you guys. Do not let us down here in this election. I mean, every year that somebody's casting a ballot, we hear the same thing. This is the most important election of our time. This is the most important election. Get out and vote. But I mean, this is not a platitude this time. I mean, this is truly the most important election of our lifetime. And I, tend to think, for our entire lifetime, because if we're able to elect President Trump, then once again, then that's going to ensure the course of the country for another generation, and then those people that come after us are probably going to have a Great Awakening redo or something like that. Make sure that we keep the cabal in check, because they're not going away. There's going to be a takedown, so there's going to be a dismantling, but mark my words, corruption is part of human civilization. We've got people who they always want more than you, and they're willing to do anything to get it. And unfortunately, that's not something you can breed out of existence.
Right. And so let's just kind of put it into a context here. Well, a lot of us can agree that Trump winning and he's got a second term, he doesn't have to fight for another election for himself. It's kind of like the gloves off, the chains are off. He can do a lot more. It might justify a lot of the reasons why we haven't seen necessary like actions and pain happening. If we just want to talk about it, then fine. Let's win this election. Let's take it home. And then let's do things where we are going to be in full-blown offense even more. I know that we've been feeling it lately. There's a lot more offense going on. Mm-hmm. But imagine spending the next 4 years to where we get to do what we've been doing, but now we're going through and sifting through the actions of Durham, the action of other investigations that we know of and that we don't know of, people being held accountable, all that. We get to spend a second term with Trump, who can do everything that we want him to do, even further, the stuff that he's been talking about that he wants to accomplish. I mean, think about this. We need Trump to win. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people with kids, in this chat right now. He wants to give you the, school choice. He wants to full blown do that, have that action go on. He doesn't win, we're not going to see that because they know that they have to indoctrinate our kids and they use school for that. So there's many different things on the table that we all want, and that is getting Trump reelected. So let's take this home and let's have fun. Let's have a fun 4 years. This year has been hell. Let's have a great 2021 and beyond, and let's take these people to the woodshed and get this done.
Absolutely. I mean, let's continue on with this battle, you guys. Like I said, it's not going to end. I think that people are always battle weary, but if you look at this and you understand that this is going to be an ongoing action, it's a continuation of what's before us and what's going to come after us. Just, remember that the work never stops. There are going to be brief moments where we can rest, perhaps like President Trump here at Walter Reed or wherever he is. But by and large, this is something that we're going to have to carry on. And we have to instill that in coming generations, future generations, so that they can keep the work going when we're not here anymore. Now, did you see that Chris Wallace got called out for his behavior in the debate the other night?
I've saw him be called out by some people, especially on who worked for Fox News. He was called out.
Yeah, well, specifically, he was interviewing somebody from the campaign, and he interrupted him. And the what is his name? His name is Steve Cortez. Steve Cortez. And he said, hey, this reminds me a little bit about what you did to the president the other night. He told him that he was not a neutral party in the debate. Let me go ahead and show this, and you guys can listen to it because this is pretty good, man. Chris Wallace needs to get called out. He needs to be put in his place, and I want to make sure that this doesn't happen to the president again.
Clinic where everybody wears a mask. Why didn't that?
Chris, the way you're starting to harangue me now actually reminds me of what you did to the president during that debate on Tuesday night. When not just Joe, no, and he had the debate, not just Joe Biden, but you as well. You were not a neutral moderator then. I don't mind tough questions. I welcome reasonably tough questions, but what I don't think is okay is for you to become the effective opposition to the president. Okay, and everyone there was tested in the crowd. They were distanced from each other. People can make reasonable decisions for themselves.
No, they can't. They're the rules, and they'll be kicked out next time. Steve, let me just simply say the president interrupted me and the vice president 145 times, so I object to saying I harangued the president. I know it's the talking point.
So how many times did Joe Biden and Chris Wallace interrupt the president? I mean, they love to give these one-sided statistics, but anybody watching that clearly saw the writing on the wall. It was Chris Wallace and Joe Biden versus President Trump. There is some talk, I believe, from the Trump team about having the second debate moderator replaced. I think that that's the only way that we're going to have anything close to a fair debate in the second go round here on the 15th. But we've already done asking people who we want them to have as the debate moderator, but. This is so transparent. When have you ever heard of somebody who is extremely favorable to President Trump, being given the honor of doing something like this? I mean, it's only ever been people who were anti-President Trump, like Megyn Kelly last time. Remember that? She was the perfect one to do it because President Trump called her out directly to her face. But, we need to have fair representation. And once again, I don't think that's possible under the current system we have. The mainstream media, the current political system that we have set up here in this country, it's always going to be stacked against President Trump, and that's why we need him for a second term so that we can undo some of this madness that we have going on right now.
Yeah, I can't really swear 145 times in 90 minutes. So that doesn't really make that much sense to me. But also, did you just watch how Wallace could not even admit anything that he did wrong? Right. Like there wasn't even like I'm sorry if it did come across that way. That wasn't my intention. Where's that? Right. Yeah. Like it's no. Let me go ahead and find one thing you said that I'm going to say that's not true. make that the entire thing and then throw it out. That's the problem with these people. They can't admit they have to still come out on top, and you could see the arrogance come out. And they do got to change that second moderator out. He interned for Biden.
Yeah.
There's no need to have that on. And if anything, they should have let Biden pick one, let Trump pick one, and then have the third one. I don't even know how to answer that, but let Trump pick a moderator then. Mm-hmm. Let them each pick one, and then let there be a vote or something. Give it to the public and let us vote. Do some poll and then let us pick. But no, they're not going to do that because they have to control everything in a bubble along the entire way, script it because you see them play this out in their head like a script on how this needs to go across the board. Because you can watch that first debate and you can see how it was all geared towards Biden. Nothing worked in Trump's favor. Mm-hmm. And that makes complete sense for the bridge troll that is Chris Wallace to be the moderator.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's ego. It's all ego. They all think that they're better than President Trump. They think they're better than us. Okay, we're the smelly Walmart people, as what's his name? Peter Strzok said, we smell bad. Hillary Clinton calling us a basket of deplorables. It's unfathomable to them that anyone who is, respectful, who is caring, who is a kind and generous human being might actually be interested in supporting President Trump because they think that they're correct and the only way to think is to think like them. And if you're outside that box, you're part of the Untermensch, I think it is. You're not part of the club, basically. The corruption in America is so bad. And one of the major things that has given me a lot of hope and that we've talked about on the show numerous times is all of the actions taken by the FBI and the DOJ against local government, okay? We just had the mayor of Rochester, New York. She was indicted on several different charges, and I'm just getting her pulled up here. Mayor Warren is her name. And she is been indicted on fraud in the first degree in violation of election law. So, this is in keeping with the trend that we've seen recently, something like 6 or 7 cases that fall in our favor in terms of election law, labeling ballot harvesting as illegal in Arizona. So bye-bye, Kristen Sinema. But she's facing 2 felonies. Scheme to defraud in the first degree and violation of election law. She was also charged with her campaign manager, Albert Jones Jr., and the treasurer of her political action committee, Rosalind Brooks Harris. Now, President Trump's got power, but he's only got so much power. If we're going to clean up this system, if we're truly going to drain the swamp, we have to do it not only at the federal level, but at the state and local levels as well. Because that corruption just runs straight through. They start being corrupt in a city, city council, mayor, county commissioner maybe, and then they get into state senator, and then they become, a congressman, and then they end up in Washington, and it just goes uphill. Now, the fact that this woman was just charged is such good news because it shows that the feds are paying attention still. It's in Rochester, we got Philadelphia, we got Chicago, all of these major metropolitan cities, which frankly drive a lot of these big, voting schemes. Now, we had also the AG of Texas. Texas AG, his name is Texas AG, where'd that go? Ken Paxton. Now, the difference here is that the mayor of Rochester, New York, is a Democrat, and she was indicted by the feds. Now, Ken Paxton is the AG of Texas, and he's a Tea Party conservative. Do you know who is alleging that he has committed illegal acts, Methods?
I imagine Democrats.
His current and former aides, a group of current and former aides, so people working underneath him. So there's one of 2 things going on here. Either these people are swamp, and the AG of Texas is doing such a good job that they can't have him going after people for actual crimes, and they want to get somebody back into that office who's going to play ball and play the game in the way that they need to, or Ken is actually a dirty player and he's doing stuff. But the reason I tend to think it's the former rather than the latter is because it's not the feds going after him. He's not under criminal indictment. It's just a whistleblower scenario, apparently. They wrote a letter alleging that they have knowledge of facts relevant to these potential offenses, which are some type of fraud and stuff, and they know that he's made statements concerning those facts. Oh, and they've made statements concerning it to the proper law enforcement. And they wrote this letter to the Austin American-Statesman. Now, Austin, Texas, is a bastion of liberal beliefs and practices. So that makes me even more suspect about this position. I want to know if we have any Texans out there. Yes, look at Melissa Charba. Ken Paxton is a good man. Anybody else know anything else about Ken Paxton? Because I never heard of Ken until this article came out. But I believe that it is very, very suspect that it's coming from people working underneath him and not the federal government charging him with these crimes.
Right. I mean, to a degree, I know certain accusations can really ruin somebody's reputation, even when they're not true, especially when we get into certain things like a Harvey Weinstein type thing. But I say just investigate everybody on all sides, and let's just start from scratch here. But it's not surprising. I mean, Texas is such, it's such a stronghold that's Republican, but a lot of Democrats are moving that way, man. I mean, they're following Joe Rogan over there as far as getting out of California. But yeah, I mean, to me, he's accused of stuff. We've seen accusations fly everywhere ever since Trump got elected, and even before that. Investigate it and then exonerate, and then get the people, if they've committed things that are wrong, hold them accountable, and let's move forward.
Now, Paxton actually made a statement. He put a letter out saying that the complaints against him were done to impede an ongoing investigation into criminal wrongdoing by public officials, including employees in his office, and that making false claims is a very serious matter, and we plan to investigate this to the fullest extent of the law. So, now knowing that, I think even more that these people are swamp creatures. If Ken Paxton, as the head prosecutor in the state of Texas, was already involved in an investigation to try to remove the swamp is about to bite back in the way that we're seeing here. The same way that we've seen done against President Trump. How many allegations have been made against President Trump since he came into office, and all of them leading absolutely nowhere? I think that this is the exact same thing we're seeing there in Texas, and everybody in the chat is saying that Ken Paxton is a good man. And once again, a Tea Party conservative, not an inside guy. He is somebody from the outside who was elected by the good people of Texas. Now, that statement you made about people following Joe Rogan into Texas, there is a movement by people in the Democrat Party who want to turn Texas blue by moving enough people there to tip that balance. And that's, it's the same idea as pushing all of these, unregistered, undocumented citizens, shall we say, as the Democrats like to say, these dreamers, pushing these dreamers into Texas. And, oh man. And if they do enough of it, they can take over. They can just flip the scales. And then that's a lot of electoral votes.
Right. I mean, that would obviously be what they war gamed when they were moving. They knew people would move out of California.
Yep.
But, I mean, that whole situation you just described about them going after this guy who was investigating, that just reminds me of what happened in Ukraine with that prosecutor who was looking into Hunter Biden. Same kind of thing. I mean, if you're being attacked by someone, what did they do to Trump and Barr during all these investigations into what happened?
Yep.
Against the president, they're just attacking them all, specifically Barr with everything. They don't have much on Durham because essentially he's just an invisible man at this point.
He's a ghost.
We only see like that one picture of him being used everywhere. It would just be funny if Durham just never existed and other people just bring the charges and Durham was just a figment.
John Durham he's an avatar.
Right.
He just got other U.S. attorneys operating it behind him.
Right. I would absolutely love that. Now, I know that we're getting pretty close to bringing Nate Cain in. I just want to say we've already got 6,200 people here, more than that, which is fantastic. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I see 2.3 thousand likes. If you guys don't mind turning that thumb blue, that would be great. Any donations that you guys have made, we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, there's only a couple, so let me just run through those real quick before we get Nate on the line. First of all, earlier today, Andrew, thank you very much, buddy. Steven says, if Gina Haspel won't cooperate, maybe Flynn will. I would be totally pleased as punch to see General Flynn as the head of the clowns in America. I think he'd be a great guy to go in there and just completely, tear it down and build it back up again. Let's see. Curiosity One says, thanks for your dedication. Gaffer says, Trump is a time traveling clone. Change my mind. I love it. And then Felix, what's up, Felix? Good to see you, buddy. Appreciate that. And then real quick, jumping over to PayPal, we had, let me see. First of all, thank you to Sandra. Sandra says, oh, yep, okay, and don't need to share it, okay. Eileen, thank you very much. And that's it, all done. All right, so everything that I'm seeing about Ken Paxton makes me think that this guy is a good guy. He is not somebody that I would think would be doing bad stuff like that. But before we get Nate on here, we've been speculating for a long time about the connection between Jeffrey, the deceased billionaire, and people like Bill Gates. Well, some new information has come out. What's up, guys? I think somebody's at the door. So there has been a confirmation of a meeting that occurred back in 2013 with Bill Gates, Jeffrey, and the head of the former head of the Nobel Prize Committee, the Nobel Committee chair, Thorbjorn Jagland. They met someplace. Where was it? This is where did they meet? They met in Strasbourg. And that's really all the information that's come out, but it is a direct connection between Bill and Jeffrey. This is something many people have been speculating about for a long time. Now, there was also recently, I don't remember if this was our show Methods or if I said this on Friday night, but John Roberts' behavior the other day when, we were talking about it. John Roberts was all freaked out because he was getting trolled by Twitter for his behavior to the president. And this is on the 1st. And he was hounding the president, wanting him to say a certain series of words and denounce groups of people. And President Trump has said that specifically so many times in the past. And there was a post from our favorite Anon. I want to say it was like 4756 or something the other day. It was right after Ginsburg had passed away. And I think it was on Air Force One. And it was on the television behind some people in the Trump team. And the text was like, never forget those in the background. And it was Ginsburg on the screen and then John Roberts on the screen as well. And it just took me immediately to thinking about the Epstein flight logs and the name John Roberts that we have in there. And thinking, maybe John Roberts is acting so squirrely because he's starting to feel the heat. Maybe that's him in there. Maybe it's not the SCOTUS.
Man, that if the name wasn't so, like, not to say anybody who's named John or has last name Roberts, not dog him, but as generic or used as much, I would lean on that because that is very curious timing. But we did watch that play out in real time, where he was harassing during the press conference, and then him getting just annihilated on Twitter. And then he read his notifications and shouldn't have done it. And next thing you know, and then he doubles down and goes on the news and just shows his frustration. And I just literally, like, in my mind, just mentally, like, air-fied the entire movement because I know that everybody was giving him complete hell. Yeah. Because they can't do that. There's that high and mighty thing that me and Rip have been talking about. They feel like they can get away with it. They think they're above us. And the fact that you all got to him to the point where he couldn't even hide it. And just that woman, I don't remember her name because I don't care, that was interviewing him. And that look on her face was like, how do I go about this? What do I do? While he's losing his mind on the other side of the screen. Loved it because they need to be held accountable. They don't need to be rude. They don't need to be disrespectful. It's press secretaries. It's our president. When they get interviewed, they're supposed to get answers for them to report accordingly the truth. Mm-hmm. And they're getting quotes from them. They're handed their job. That should be the easiest article that they should have to write is what was said during these pressers. But no, they turn it into a dog and pony show, and it ends up becoming a spectacle that it didn't need to be. And they're all for it. They caught somebody on the during the presser with the doctors that's earlier today when they said that Trump could be discharged as early as tomorrow. They caught some reporter at the end saying, "Well, this wasn't as much fun as yesterday was," or something like that. Like, actually, it's not supposed to be fun. Do your job.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, just and even more so to John Roberts, the fact that he was badgering Kayleigh the other day and saying what he said about President Trump. Go look at your own reporting from 2017, John Roberts. We got the sound bites. The internet's forever. You've already stated explicitly that the president said exactly what you wanted him to say. But it's all about that, they're counting on the fact that people don't remember that, okay? They think that they're just going to be able to repeat it over and over and over again, and then people are going to start believing, well, President Trump is this terrible person. Well, guys, that's why we are here. We are the news now, and we do not forget. We are not going to allow them to impugn the character of one of the greatest living Americans to ever set foot on this earth. All right, you guys, it is 8 o'clock. We're going to bring Nate Cain in here. Do me a favor, share this broadcast. Let people know that Nate is about to step in. Don't forget to like if you have not liked yet. And we're going to have a nice little comfy conversation with our buddy Nate. And Nate, welcome to the show once again, friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Excellent.
Can't complain about it. Thanks for coming on again. This is very exciting and very important timing to have you come on with all the stuff that's been breaking recently.
Yeah, there is a lot that's been happening on many different fronts that relate to some of the stuff that I blew the whistle on and other things as well, surveillance-wise and things that I've experienced myself personally that it'll be interesting to talk about tonight. So.
Well, Nate, let's start there. Let's start with what's been happening in your life personally. I mean, you've been on the show a couple of times before. We've kind of hinted around some things. I'm hoping maybe we're going to get more specific with it due to the nature of the things that have been reported. But I mean, what's happened in your life? I mean, you've been able to maintain your security clearance. I mean, as far as I know, you're the only guy who's ever come out and whistleblow on the FBI in these circumstances here, and they've somebody has allowed you to remain in government. And I think that's a pretty astounding thing. Most oftentimes, I think people don't whistleblow because they're worried about wrecking their career. And generally speaking, I mean, that's exactly what happens. But I mean, what have you experienced?
Well, there's two different whistleblowing laws. There's the Whistleblower Protection Act, which only protects government employees, federal government employees. It does not protect contractors. So for contractors, there's another whistleblowing law called the Intelligence Community Whistleblowing Protection Act, which can be used in the case of if you work for an intelligence agency, which of course the FBI is part of that. So that is what I blew the whistle under. And in that law, while it does not protect against reprisal, it does protect against legal action from the from whatever agency. It protects your clearance and things like that, provided that you go through the right steps. And so I think that may have something to do with why I still have my clearance and why I'm still able to work in government. Now it doesn't help necessarily when your name gets out there and I applied for several different positions after I lost my job with the VA. And in fact, I know firsthand that the reason I lost my job at the VA was due to the FBI. One of the guys that I worked for, my boss told me flat out that the FBI had told the contracting office of representatives when they had asked the FBI, are we okay to bring him back to work? And they basically said, well, we wouldn't bring him, we wouldn't trust him, but that's up to you. Mm-hmm. And so they made the choice, to not bring me back. And so I ended up losing my job with the VA as a result of that, because I had left the FBI. I didn't feel safe there. So I had left and had taken a job with the VA. But, all in all, I did interview with a lot of companies. Several of them I disclosed to them because I didn't know what was going on with my case. I didn't know if I was going to be charged or indicted or what. It was really unclear. And so I just, as a precaution, I felt it was only fair to disclose to them that, that I had, my name had been, made public, and, and I shared with these people what was going on. And it was funny because the interview would go great all the way up to that point, and then I wouldn't hear from them again. So, and usually by that point, I'm not going to tell them right off the bat, but like in that final interview, that's when I would talk to them about it. And, that ended it. And fortunately, a great company, who I had a friend that I had worked with before, in Hawaii. He had talked to his boss and had talked to the president of the company, and they were very kind and agreed to interview me. And of course, my buddy was like, "Hey, you guys can get this guy. He's a cyber genius. You can get him on the cheap." So they interviewed me. The interview went really well, and they looked at my clearance and said, "Well, your clearance is good, and as long as it stays good, then yeah, we absolutely want to bring it aboard." So I've been doing a lot of work. I don't want to get into what kind of work I've been doing.
Sure.
But I have, I have been able to continue serving my country. Let's just put it that way. And it's been a great thing. And I love the company that I'm working for. They're good people there.
So you potentially faced charges, and I understand that the government put a little bit of pressure on you in a variety of ways.
Oh yeah. They really, I don't want to, I don't want to denigrate, the agents that work for the FBI. I mean, they're good people, but they're also part of a system, and that system, unfortunately, it's not perfect. And, they get sent out there, and they get sent out there to do a job. And what we have to realize, and this is an important part of, when we think about, as an American, we think about like when they go after a terrorist or whatever, after, 9/11, people were all on board with, with our mass surveillance, being set up through the Patriot Act and all of that, without thinking about the consequence of what that means for the average everyday American citizen. And, the law is very much the same, right? It doesn't matter who you are. If they are trying to get you, that's their job. They're going to try to get you, and they're going to try to use whatever means they can, whether you might consider it ethical or not. So it's easy to say, oh, when they're going after like some drug dealer or some, scumbag, gangbanger or, pedophile, yeah, we want them to, to use their, trickery and to use, pressure tactics and, and to go after their friends and family and stuff like that. And we don't have a problem with that, right? Because, we're perceiving that they're getting this bad guy. But the problem is those same tactics are used against good people too. Mm-hmm. And so you saw that happen with General Flynn. What they do, they tried to go after his son. They tried to, make threats that they were going to charge his son, with the Logan Act and that sort of thing. And to basically pressure him into making a confession. Well, they tried the same thing with me. They went after each one of my kids. They basically targeted. I've got one son who unfortunately his marriage had not worked out, and so they went after his ex-wife's. They went and interviewed his ex-wife's father, and basically tried to elicit some sort of bad information on me, because they figured this guy maybe he would have a bone to pick with me or whatever. They also did this with another son of mine. They went after and interrogated his girlfriend's parents. They barely knew me, and he interrogated them for 6 hours, and it damaged my relationship with my son, because he pretty much cut me off after that. They did the same thing with my daughter. They put in a phony tip, and sent Frederick County Sheriff's Department ended up going down to the school and questioning my daughter about me, and just making all kinds of inappropriate, innuendos and questioning her. And she was like horrified. She's like, what? Because they didn't tell her where it came from. Mm-hmm. But she was like, is this, somebody spreading rumors about me, or what is going on? And so it just was a horrible experience that I don't ever, want to go through again. And, I think I think I'm getting, I'm healing from that whole experience. I mean, it was for a long time, I was pretty paranoid about everything. But at some point, when you know that you've done the right thing, and you know that you're doing the right thing, that does give you at least some strength to be able to withstand that kind of thing. Because in the end, the truth is going to come out.
Right.
And
right.
so, when it's all said and done, there's real damage that you go through when you're a target, of a law enforcement agency. And so I respect the FBI, I respect, police department, I respect the sheriffs. I mean, I've got two uncles that are sheriffs in LA County. And, I've had a long history of support for law enforcement. But I'll be honest, this whole experience has opened my eyes, right, to, our rights as citizens and, what is acceptable. There was a time where I absolutely despised Snowden. Okay. Mm-hmm. I thought the guy was a traitor. I feel differently about it today. I think now looking at what has come out and what has, proven to be I understand why he left the country. I would never do that. I think that was a bad move on his part, but I understand why he did because of fear of reprisal. And, in the end, what he exposed, maybe not everything, but at least the stuff about the surveillance state and the unconstitutional spying that was going on against Americans. I think the American people needed to know that. So I have some major concerns, specifically within law enforcement and particularly in the intelligence community. I think that there's some real scary stuff going on. And, there was something that happened several months ago. It might have even been more than a year ago. I can't remember exactly, but I had posted on my Twitter this long thread about where I had gone and I'd done forensics on my phone. Mm-hmm. And I had collected a whole bunch of screenshots of what appeared to be Facebook collecting information from my phone. And when I say information, I mean not just like, stuff that I do on Facebook, but literally capturing little audio clips using my phone's microphone. Mm-hmm. And I posted a very long thing proving this. I put a packet sniffer on my phone. I captured packets that were going out on my phone, and I had another app that was monitoring my microphone being turned on and off, and I was capturing that data and matching the timestamps along with the packet headers. Now I couldn't read the packets because they were obfuscated with encryption or whatnot, but you could clearly see that the timestamp matched the times that my mic was turned on and turned off. And so I posted this long thread about it because I was very concerned. And what was weird was stuff was showing up in my Twitter interests. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's like this little section you can go and drill down into your settings. And I had started monitoring that because somebody had suggested that might be how they were using your Twitter interests to shadow ban people. And so like if you had anything in your Twitter interests that was, Trump related or stuff like that they were utilizing that. So I figured, what is it for me to once a day go in there and just delete the check marks out of all of the things that they were saying I'm interested in. And as far as I'm concerned, it's none of their dang business. So I was doing that. And because of that, I noticed some very interesting things. And I was able to actually capture and do a repeatable test where I was able to get something to show up in my Twitter interests that was kind of a unique phrase or term that you normally wouldn't say, but that showed up in there like 24 hours after I had a conversation with somebody about that. Mm. And so I was very concerned about it. And I ended up, somebody reached out to me and through Twitter and they DM'd me and, I'm like, hey, I don't want to have a conversation about, anything that's, that obviously if the social media companies are monitoring us, mm-hmm. I don't want to have a conversation about this with you on Twitter. So, why don't you, message me and, send me an email on my Proton Mail account. And so we started talking that way. And this guy shared a lot of information with me. What was interesting was, I couldn't prove anything because he, obviously was using an alias and he was very scared, but he claimed to be working for a company in Southern California that did aggregation and data mining of information that was collected by social media companies. And what he said was that they had gangs of artificial intelligence models that were basically running through all of this data, and it was just tons and tons and tons of data on every single person on the planet. And they were building profiles on every single person. And it seemed like almost unbelievable. And but then he made some comments that made me believe that this guy had some interactions with law enforcement, specifically FBI or Department of Homeland Security. He brought up that he had somebody visit with an NSL letter, and or an NSL, a national security letter, and that they were able to basically, without a court order, they were able to take servers and take data. And I was blown away by that. And I knew about the potential for that, but I still can't speak to it because of non-disclosure agreements and stuff that I've signed. But I will say that he went into specific details with me in his email to me about things that I know about that I can't talk about. And so it was very interesting. And so I believe the guy has some credibility to it and what he said. Well, now we know. One of the things that came out, right, was the use by the FBI using national security letters to collect information, on Flynn and on Trump campaign and whatnot, without even going through FISA. So, this is scary times. I think that there needs to be a full-blown investigation into this. I think that they're doing some investigation into FISA. It's come out that Horowitz did some really fantastic work in pulling out, just randomly pulling hundreds of FISA requests. And then they took all of those and they just randomly went through them. And the majority of the ones that had been filed, they found to be fraudulent or missing information or not meeting the standards that the FISA courts are supposed to have in order to be able to violate somebody's, Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. So, this is a serious issue in America right now. I think it's something that we need to get a handle on. I was really disappointed when I saw that Congress reissued the authorization, on those programs. I understand why they did, but at the same time, I think to do that without requiring a complete review and overhaul of that entire surveillance system, I think was a huge mistake. So, hopefully, hopefully this new information that has come out will lead to some investigations and some oversight. It bothers me that the very two committees, right, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, they are supposed to be they're representing us, right? They are our representatives. We elected those people, and they are supposed to have oversight into the intelligence activities going on with all these different agencies. And yet they're denied access to documents. They're denied access. I understand that the FBI doesn't like to give information to, Congress because Congress is notorious for leaking it.
Right.
So fine. Then arrest those congressmen when they leak it, make sure and make the penalty so high that nobody does that. But when they ask for something, as far as I'm concerned, they should be given it. And, they are our representatives. These people in these intelligence agencies, they don't represent us. They've never were voted in there. All these people that are put into these positions of power and authority and the ability to spy on all of us, none of those people were voted in, not one of them. And so to me, that is a huge concern. I think I love our president. Absolutely. I love him. But I think that he's made some mistakes, quite frankly, and some of the people that he's appointed. And so I'm hoping that, he's learning from that, having these guys that are inside people is not always wise. you know, a lot of those people turned out to be part of the, you know, the coup to overthrow him. And so, you know, and I think he's learned from that. You know, he obviously put, you know, some really good people in the ODNI that have been able to declassify some information that, you know, has been very good. But the reason I bring all this stuff up with Facebook, so I think I mentioned a year ago, and I don't remember if it was on your show or not, but about a year ago, I got an email, and in that email, it came from Facebook, and it said, your account, we were under a court order not to tell you that we had a law enforcement request for all of your Facebook information. And so we had provided that information, you know, and they were saying this was a year ago. So that date fell about a week or 2 weeks prior to the raid on my house. So I expected that, you know, I mean, I wasn't shocked. I was a little disturbed by it, but I wasn't shocked. What I was disturbed about was just, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, I got another email from Facebook saying that the same thing about basically a year ago, that I had a collection that had been done on my account by law enforcement. And they don't say who, but it's clearly, obviously, the FBI. So what bothers me is that means that if they held off that information for a year, that means the date of that collection would have been almost a year after it came out that I was a whistleblower. And so what are they still doing, surveilling me? So that really bothers me.
That's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very scary. And so it dawned on me a couple nights ago. I was talking to my wife and my brother-in-law and his wife, and we were just sitting around having dinner, and we were talking about this thing, and I realized it just like all of a sudden dawned on me. Holy crap. Why have I not gotten any of these notices from Google? I have a Gmail account. I haven't gotten any of these notices from Google. I haven't gotten any of these notices from Twitter. I haven't gotten any of these notices from any other social media, account that I belong to. And I realized that's because Facebook has got to be the aggregator for all of them. And they can just go straight to Facebook and get everything for everything. Now, one of the things that was the reason I bring that up, and the reason I think this is, and this is a theory, okay? I have no proof of that. But what makes me believe that is the case is I have an Android phone, and so when I was doing all this experimenting, okay, the packet capture app that I had running, what it was looking at and what it would do is it would identify an app that had opened up or that basically had sent TCP/IP packet data, okay, to somewhere. And there was only one app that was sending, or one service, I should say, that was sending information, okay, that was consistently sending information, and that was Facebook services. So as an experiment, I deleted Facebook, completely removed it off of my phone. Well, after I deleted it, the service was still running and it was still sending information. And I realized that it didn't matter that I removed it. That service wasn't really a service working for the application of Facebook. Facebook services that was running in the background was doing something else. What it was doing, it was capturing audio clips of me talking. So that means, now think about this, okay?
Baked in.
If it caught conversations that I'm having, right, and they're collecting this information, all right, then that means, and it's not like full-blown conversations. It looks like the data packets are like, like 7 seconds of audio, like every 3 minutes or something like that they were running. Okay. So if they're doing that, you can get a lot of information on what they're targeting for, or what they claim that they're targeting for is to build, advertisement data, right? Mm-hmm. So it just came out not too long ago. The country of Germany sued Facebook and won in a court of law. And I remembered that the lawsuit was over basically their violation of people's right to privacy. Mm-hmm. So I went and I looked up that article and I found it. And what they were talking about was they said the authorities said Facebook broke competition laws by combining data it collected about users across its different platforms, including WhatsApp and Instagram, as well as, and this is key, from outside websites and third-party apps. So they're working with other people to collect data, to parse through it, and then build these profiles, so that they can, sell this information. It says the decision is a direct shot at Facebook's business model, which relies on collecting reams of data about people in order to offer more targeted advertising. So,
right. Well,
so
Nate, just real quick to build on that, a class action lawsuit has recently been launched against Instagram, which is a division of Facebook, because iOS recently allowed for people to get logs of each of those processes that are being enacted by the various apps on your phone. And although they denied it at first, Instagram on people's phones was doing the exact same thing, but even if the app wasn't open, and for as long as it wanted, it was recording people and then sending that information over, accessing their phones, taking videos, all of it.
Yeah, so it's scary when you think about it, right? They have all this data, like they got pictures, right? I mean, there's stuff that you don't share publicly, maybe you just share with your family. Yeah. They have all of that. They have all of, the stuff that you've tweeted, but posted about. And I think they have also, I think they're getting data from some of these other companies as well, and they're aggregating that as well. So it is, to me, it's atrocious to think about the power that they have and to think of what they're doing now in these elections, right? Mm-hmm. In the meddling that they're doing. I think there needs to be major antitrust lawsuits against all of these social media giants. What they're doing, to me, it's criminal, and it's violating our constitutional rights. And some might argue and say, well, you can choose not to use these apps. However, here's the problem with that. So one of the things that was told to me by this informant, is the only way I can say, the source that spoke to me. He said it doesn't even matter if you're using your phone, because he said the voice recognition algorithms are so advanced that you could leave your phone in your car and your GPS is on the phone, and so proximity, it knows that you're within X number of spaces or whatever away from your phone, and you can be in the bar having a conversation with somebody else, and it's able to recognize your voice on that person's phone and collect on you, not even from your own device, but from somebody else's. Yeah. So I tested that theory out. Okay. I tested that theory out, and I proved that theory is correct, that it actually is able to pick up on you. And I'll tell you how I know. So I had a job fair where I was going and interviewing hundreds of people. Okay. I mean, just nonstop interviews all day long. And I decided to completely power off my phone, and I buried it in the bottom of a bag. But I knew other people have phones around and all of that. And so I talked about some very specific targeted phrases that I used over and over again that are not typical. Like they're kind of slang terminology within the cybersecurity, community. And so I particularly use the term tiger team. Okay. When people, would ask me, so what do you do? And tell me about the job and this kind of thing. So it was a deployable tiger team to go do cybersecurity. And so I used that term. And then the next day I went and I looked at my Twitter interests, and one thing that showed up was the Clemson Tigers. Now, I've never in my life ever looked. I didn't even know there was such a thing as the Clemson Tigers. Okay. I'm not a sports guy. I'm more of a geek. And so when I saw that, I was shocked, because that showed up as one of my Twitter interests. Now, Clemson Tigers, it's a team, with Tigers as their name, right? So it was like the algorithm wasn't smart enough to figure out that I wasn't talking about a sports team. It just sounded that I was talking about a sports team, but it picked it up on somebody else's phone, is the point I'm trying to make. I had not used that term previously, okay, in the previous probably year, okay? I hadn't used that term. So there's no way that it was like from a conversation that I had on my phone, a week before or something like that. So I think this is huge. I think it needs to be investigated. And I think that Congress, I think, needs to, start an investigation into this. And I hope they do. But, we'll see what happens.
I mean, adding credence to the idea that they are sharing data and Facebook is just the main point that's then putting it out. I mean, Facebook is functionality that's baked into the programming on Android cell phones. So whether or not you have Facebook installed, I mean, those processes are going to be there. It's picking that up. Now, the Justice Department has had an ongoing 16-month probe into Google, and it looks like as soon as this week, we could be getting that antitrust case against Google, and it's just on the horizon.
Google. Facebook is huge. They are majorly involved in this, and they definitely need to be looked at. And so, I mean, Google's a problem too. Don't get me wrong, but Facebook is definitely where I think the aggregation at least is coming from. And I think what's happening is Google and other people, they're aggregating data as well, but they're sending their data probably to whoever's compiling all of this stuff together.
Mm-hmm. So just real quick, Nate, on that point, I'm hearing your story about how things show up in your interest in Twitter. I clear those out daily too. Yeah. I don't want to have anything there for them to have. But I have used a Roku, which is on a different thing. It's on a TV. It's wireless there. I'm using Twitter on my desktop with a VPN. And I will watch something on YouTube on the Roku, and it'll be around like a specific sports ball player or something. And I'm not talking about it out loud, not near my phone. I don't even have Twitter on my phone. And I will see it days later in my interest, the name of that sports player or something else that I was watching on YouTube. And the YouTube is a different account than what I use on my desktop.
Yeah. So Twitter must have some sort of agreement with some of these other aggregators, because again, you see this cross-pollination of stuff that shows up in your Twitter feed that has nothing to do with Twitter, but like it could be something that you looked up on Google, or it could be something that you had a conversation with somebody. But this is why I think when people are talking about, you hear a lot of people talk about, they'll be having a conversation, with their wife about something, and maybe a product or something, and then next thing you know, all of a sudden they start seeing advertisements showing up, right? In the advertisement windows about the things that they were talking about. And I think a lot of people hear that, and they've in the past they've just thought, oh, these people are just they're paranoid. Well, I don't think it's paranoia. I think there is something to it. And anyways, that doesn't necessarily have to do with my whistleblowing, but it does have to do with me and surveillance that's been done on me. And so I think that that there's been surveillance that's been done on me through these national security letters, possibly. So when this whole thing maybe in a couple of years I'll submit get a good lawyer or whatever and file some FOIAs to try to find out. But it's expensive. It's not cheap. You had asked how did I avoid or how did I avoid getting into trouble and all of that when so many other whistleblowers have. And I think part of it is I had a very good lawyer. I mean, I had one of the best. He wasn't cheap either. So it was very, very expensive, but I think he's one of the best in the nation, and so that helps. And so these lawsuits, they're not cheap, and when it comes to a whistleblower dealing with classified information, lawyers don't do that kind of work, pro bono, because it's high. It has a high liability for them. So that's one of the problems, in my opinion, with the whole whistleblowing program. Mm-hmm. Is that they do not provide you legal counsel, and so you're on your own if you want to go get legal counsel, and it's extremely expensive. Most people don't have the money. I certainly didn't have the money. When my lawyer first talked to me, he said, he says, "Are you independently wealthy?" And I said, "No, I work for the government." And he said, "Well, do you have any rich relatives?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Because I'm not cheap." And I said, can't you do this pro bono? And he just laughed at me. He said, no. He says, first off, you're dealing with the Clintons and you're dealing with classified information. There's no way any lawyer is going to touch your case with a 10-foot pole without, some sort of, fee being charged because of legal reasons for liability. So, I ended up, I left that conversation with him, and I was actually pretty down. And I thought, crap, man, my life is over. And he ended up reaching out to somebody that he had done some business for before. That was she was a widow that had had more money than she knew what to do with, that donated to worthy causes. And he talked to her about my situation. I've never met this woman, don't know her, from Adam. But he talked to her about the situation, and she wrote a check for
awesome.
all of my legal fees for the next year. I mean, it basically, it's $200,000.
Wow, how cool
and
is that?
and I think the only thing I can think of is that was God, because I don't know. When I first got into this thing, and this is something I've shared on a couple of different people's shows, but I don't know if I've ever really gotten into it on your show. But a lot of people have asked me. A lot of people will tell me, oh, you're so brave, to have done this, and, to go up against the Clintons or go up against, the world's leading, premier law enforcement agency that has all the power to destroy your life. And, you're either very brave or very stupid, one of the two, right? Well, there's a third option. And, and that option, what the truth is I have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith in God. And when I was working for the FBI and I came across this information, that indicated to me that there were, in fact, investigations going on into the Clinton Foundation and into Uranium One and into, other things of money laundering and terrorism financing and securities and exchange fraud, public corruption. Those were the different categories. So when I saw that, I thought at first, I'm like, oh, okay, well, they're investigating, because there was a lot of talk at the time about, how nothing, was being done. The FBI wasn't doing anything. And so when I saw that, I thought, oh, no, they're doing something, but, justice is slow. And, but then when Comey came out and he exonerated Hillary Clinton in front of everybody, I knew he'd seen all that information. Mm-hmm. So how in the hell is he going to come out and exonerate Hillary? First off, he shouldn't have said anything, because he didn't have any place or business doing that. The FBI's job is to investigate. It's not to bring charges. That's the Department of Justice's job. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand that. And so, I was very shocked at Comey doing this. And, but that's when I realized they were going to cover this up. And I had heard rumors already about that. But I didn't, I don't necessarily believe rumors when I hear them in the office. I had heard rumors that the FBI had come across some major corruption within our government, and that it was huge. And the word treason was being thrown around left and right. And there was talk about that they didn't know what to do, that there were so many people involved in it that this could bring down the government, that this was, a huge conspiracy. And so that's initially what made me go look, and to see, because I was like, I can't believe it. If that's true, and if that information is there, then somebody's got to say something about it. And so I sat on it for a while. Once Comey came out and exonerated Hillary, I knew that something needed to be done. But even then I waited, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And I couldn't sit by and, know that I was going to work there and collect a fat check, which I was making more money than I've ever made, and say nothing and do nothing. And so I did the research. I did my homework. I figured out how I could go about blowing the whistle. And at first I really only had one option, and that was to go directly to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, because the problem was as I started investigating the situation with Uranium One and that whole thing, I realized that at the time that the Uranium One deal had gone down, the person who was running the Department of Justice public corruption unit was the guy who was the the guy who was the Inspector General for the intelligence community, who I would have to ultimately go to. Okay, and that was Michael Atkinson's. So he was one of the guys who was named in my complaint. Another person who was named in my complaint was the Maryland state's attorney, who basically was involved in the whole uranium yellow cake transport in the cell of basically the kickback scheme going on with the Russians. That's all now come out, and finally there's been some prosecution in that. But basically that whole case, and nothing happened of it. It just sat there forever. And the guy who was involved in that, who led that investigation, was Rod Rosenstein. So he was listed in my in my complaint. And then of course you had two other names of people who were also involved. One was Robert Mueller. Okay, he was the FBI director at the time, and working for him was of course Jim Comey. So I was screwed. I mean, I was like, how do I blow the whistle? And they're going to have to see it, because the way the process works is when you take something to the IG has to send it up to the AG, and the problem there was, even though Jeff Sessions was the AG, he had recused himself from all things Russia, which meant it would have gone to the deputy, which would have been Rod Rosenstein. So there was no way around it. I had no other choice, and so I started researching what I could do. I had a courier card, so I was authorized to courier classified information as long as it ended up in the right hands. And I found a U.S. law that stated that a senior staff member for the intelligence committees was authorized to receive classified information from anybody. So that's what I did. Now, I didn't directly contact them because I was scared. I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And I ended up reaching out to a YouTuber who had interviewed prior to that Bill Binney. And so I knew he was connected and had some knowledge of people in the intelligence community. And for those of you who don't know, Bill Binney was probably the first major whistleblower for the intelligence community. He blew the whistle on a program that he had created called Thin Thread, which was basically collecting surveillance information on everybody. And what he did was, when he realized that it was being used to spy on Americans, he went and blew the whistle on it. And he ended up getting, I think that the FBI showed up, they busted into his house, had a gun on him while he was, stark naked in the shower. And, he ended up fighting them in court, and he won. So he's a huge hero of mine. And,
likewise.
And I just, I think that what he did, really took tenacity and bravery. And but so I reached out to Bill Still, who has a YouTube channel, because he had talked with Bill Binney and interviewed him, and I was hoping that maybe he knew some people. And I said, hey, I want to have a conversation with you and about something I need to blow the whistle on, but I need a secure conversation. So we communicated, and it turned out he did know somebody. He knew somebody that was connected with the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and could get a message to Devin Nunes. So he reached out through that secondary person to set up a meet. And so we had a clandestine meet where I carried out all the information on the Clinton Foundation and the stuff that I had found. I carried that on a thumb drive, or followed all the procedure, and I handed it over to this guy after, of course, he showed me his credentials. We drove around the Capitol for about 3 hours while I debriefed him on it. And basically, I thought I was done, and I had already found another job. And that's another part of the story, is that before I decided to do this, I prayed. I said, God, if you want me to do this, I need another job and I need it like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kidding you not, like 2 days later, I got a phone call, and I wasn't even looking for a job. I hadn't even posted my resume, but I got a phone call from somebody who had seen my information, I guess, on LinkedIn or whatever. And they wanted to interview me for a job, and they ended up offering me a position like the same day that I interviewed. So, I mean, it was like, it went really well. And it was a job working from home 100% of the time. It was working for the VA, and it was, the pay was about 40,000 less. But since I didn't have to commute and I didn't have to deal with all of that, you know, tightening my budget and everything, you know, we were able to make it work. And so I ended up, you know, having like about a week before I left is when I set up that meet. So during that meet, and I'm not, there's certain facts I won't ever talk about publicly, and, you know, like the names of the individuals that I met with, but he was a senior staffer for Devin Nunes. So, but, you know, for his safety, you know, the FBI knows who it is, because of course I told them the truth about everything, but some of that information is just not necessary for the public to know.
Okay.
But when I met with him, he gave me a way of communicating with him, and he told me flat out that the HPSI was concerned that they were being surveilled by the intelligence community.
Oh, wow.
Now, think about that for a minute. Think about that, how scary that is. The very people who are supposed to be monitoring the intelligence community are being spied on by the intelligence community. And there's proof of that, because chairman of the Judicial Committee on the Senate side at the time was Chuck Grassley. And after my name got exposed, Chuck Grassley, he told Director Wray, he said, "Hey, you know, I want to know why you went after a whistleblower." And Chuck Grassley's been one of the most ardent supporters of whistleblowers, and, you know, he's called the you know, the FBI on their crap on a number of occasions. And so he demanded answers from Wray, which he never received. And so he gave him a date when he wanted that information. He didn't get it. That was confirmed by the Daily Caller. They interviewed his people in his office, and they said no, he never received any information. And right after that, I believe it was right after that he posted declassified documents on the Senate Judiciary's website, proving that the CIA had been spying on the intel committees to find out information on whistleblowers, of all things. So, you know,
was that contemporaneous to when you were whistleblowing, or was that the actions in the past? Because I'm sure it's not the only time.
It was actions in the past. It was actions in the past. It was information that he was able to get declassified, that showed all of this. So it had nothing to do with me specifically, but it proved that these guys had in the past spied to find information on whistleblowers. Because how did my name ever even come out? First off, I used a code name, and so, you know, so there was two. So let me go back a little bit. So so Devin Nunes, this guy, basically told me, he says, "Look, we're investigating this stuff. We're very interested in it. Specifically information on what the FBI knew about the Russians and what they were doing. We need you." You know, he says, "Is there more information on that?" And I said, I don't know. I said, "There probably is, but," you know, he says, "Can you go back in and get it?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And I think my face went white at the time, because I had like 4 days left, you know, at the bureau. And I'm just like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But I understood what they were doing. I felt what they were doing is important. And so I agreed. And so because they were worried about surveillance, he gave me a means of being able to connect to him via encrypted, you know, messaging. So we tested it out. It worked. You know, and Bill, still, he was there, you know, as my witness for all of this. So, you know, there's nobody can deny it. And so I ended up going, I got the information on my last day at the FBI. I walked out with it. It took everything within me to build up the courage to do it. Ultimately, it was about 450 pages of classified, you know, secret documents. And I got out, And I tried communicating through the means that he told me to communicate with him, and I got no response. And I was left twisting in the wind with this hot potato, wondering what the hell I was going to do, and realized at that point I was screwed. So I took it home.
Hey, Nate, how long did you have that hot potato situation going on?
Until the FBI raided my house.
Wow.
Yeah. So believe me, when they took that from my house, I was happy. I looked at it like this. I always get these people going, I hope you made a copy. Oh, hell no.
No
it's like,
way.
Seriously, having that thing in my possession meant that, certain people might want to have me dead to get it. Okay. So when the FBI took possession of it, I was so relieved, that I didn't have to do it, because I already had gotten the information to where it needed to go. And that brings up another point. I've had people ask me, so I'm kind of clearing some things up here while I have a chance. So I had some people ask me, well, why did you end up with the thumb drive in your possession? That's illegal. You should not be able to have that. Well, first off, I never stole anything. Okay. Under the Whistleblower Protection Act, you are authorized to remove classified information for the purpose of handing it over, for whistleblowing. So that's exactly what I did. Now, I got stuck with it, and I had to put it in a safe at my house, and that's when that's when I realized I needed a lawyer, and I needed a good lawyer, and I needed it now. And so I reached out to, through an intermediary to Michael Stakaris, my lawyer. And so when he finally agreed to take my case, and he basically, we said, okay, well, what are we going to do? So let's go and, let's seek some legal counsel of different pathways. We can, basically make a deal, with a U.S. attorney, or we can go and go through the formal whistleblowing, Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. And so that was the route we chose, but we knew we couldn't go through the Intelligence Community Whistleblower, because Atkins, we felt like, he had bias and maybe was even dirty. So
Clearly.
So we ended up instead, Horowitz, by this time, Horowitz had released his first report on Andrew McCabe, basically saying that he didn't have candor. Lack of candor, and he had recommended charges. And so we knew that he was not just a yes man for the FBI, and so we figured, he had shown himself to be honorable, and so that was the route that we went. And Horowitz agreed, first off, to unprecedented to allow me to use a code name, so I never had to reveal my name. He allowed for us to have a clandestine meeting. So we met at St. John's Church, and it was the day of, I don't remember the exact date on my head, but it was the date that Horowitz met at Congress to release his report on all the shenanigans that were going on in the FBI. So we met with his senior investigative counsel, and that's who came to pick up the package. And so we had set up the meet at St. John's Church. So I wore a hoodie and sunglasses, and just trying to obfuscate my identity. And I told them, I said I didn't want to have to say anything in case they had something to try to collect my voice and try to do voice recognition and figure out who I was. So they agreed. They showed up, and my lawyer and I we went in there first, and we got down on our knees and we prayed. And not
a bad idea.
No, I think he was just as nervous as I was. And we knelt down and prayed, and he told me, he says, all right, just sit here in this seat here in this row. He says, I'm going to walk him in, and when I tap you on the shoulder, take the package and hand it over your left shoulder. And that's what we're going to do. And so that's what we did. And he took the package from me, and then he walked him out, escorted him out. We waited, for about 20 minutes or so, and then we departed and went our separate ways. And I thought I was done. I knew that there was a possibility that eventually the FBI, would probably raid me. I had no. Let's just put it this way. I knew that once that information went into their hands, they would have eyes on. They'd be able to figure out all the documents, and then they could reverse, analyze, okay, well, who pulled and accessed those documents? And because I didn't want to obfuscate or do anything illegal. So I didn't delete any records or anything like that. So everything was there. And so I'm sure that's probably how they figured out, who I was. And then somebody, ended up wanting to leaking my information after the raid. So anyhow, I ended up for a while there, trying to figure out, okay, so what am I? Oh, so one of the things that Horowitz did was we asked him, do you want us to bring the thumb drive? And he said, no. He said, I want you to print out the documents, because under the law, I was authorized to hand carry that thumb drive to the committees myself. Okay. And that's what the law stated. So he said, no, I don't want you to give me the thumb drive. I want you to maintain it and then just print out the copies of all the documents, put it in a double sealed envelope following all the procedures for handling classified data. And so that's what I did. So that's how I ended up with the thumb drive. And originally the plan was I was going to take that thumb drive and hand it over to the HPSI. And but what ended up happening was, because I had a code name and it was all clandestine and everything, they were nervous and they didn't know who I was. They didn't want to take anything from this person who they didn't know. So even though I had a lawyer who contacted them and reached out to them and confirmed that I legitimately was a whistleblower, so I don't understand that. But we went back to Horowitz and said, hey, look, they're refusing to accept our information. What do we do? Are you willing to go on our behalf? And again, Horowitz took the unprecedented measure of basically agreeing to hand deliver the information to both the House and Senate committees. And so he took the information he had and sent it to both of them. Meanwhile, I still have this thumb drive. So I kind of forgot about it. And about a week, it's funny because about a week before the FBI raided, my lawyer had called me and he's like, I'm concerned. We need to get that thumb drive, into the right hands. And I'm concerned that you still have possession of it. And he said, and I'm like, yeah, what do you suggest? And he says, I don't know, but let's talk again next week and we'll, I'll reach out to some people and we'll see if we can figure out, what to do with it. And so I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 days later, I'm sitting right where I'm at right now. And I'm on, this kind of upper floor of my house and in my office, and I can see down my driveway and I see this car, this white sedan, come up my driveway. And I see these 4 people get out of the car and they all look like they have, FBI regulation haircuts and they have that law enforcement kind of stance, Yep. And I'm just like, it's how somebody walks when they're carrying a gun, Concealed. That's what it is. And so I'm just like, oh man, the FBI's here. And so when I went downstairs, I knew it was them. And
hi, fellas.
Yeah. So long story short, I don't want to rehash all that again, but basically, they went through, with a search warrant and searched my house. They took all my electronics. They interrogated me and they were at my house for like 6 to 7 hours. And I still haven't gotten any of my stuff back, by the way. So,
wow.
I don't know if I ever will. And probably by the time I do, it'll be so outdated, it'll be obsolete.
Exactly. Now, Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember the revelation that there was a whistleblower coming out along with that story of meeting in the church before your name was actually released. I feel like I reported on a story right when I first started and you just, talking about the fact that there was a whistleblower in regards to the Clinton Foundation, all this other corruption. And then it was just immediately after that, it was like, Clinton Foundation whistleblower revealed, Nate Cain.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. So, I've had a lot of contemplation about who knew what and what happened, because like I said, I had nobody ever saw my face. Nobody ever saw my name. I know that the New York Times wrote a hit piece on me. And so I don't know, but I got a phone call from my lawyer. Okay. And this was the night before the story broke. And my lawyer had gotten a call from Richard Pollack at the Daily Caller, and he had told my lawyer, he said, look, I've got an inside source at some other news agency that, that says that they're about ready to write a hit piece on a client of yours, Nate Cain, who's stole information, from the FBI, right? And this was, what he was hearing, that this is what they were going to report. And he says, I think that, I want to give you an opportunity to share your side of things, and maybe we could get our story out ahead of them. And of course, so he was looking for an exclusive. I mean, he's a reporter. That's what he does. So, so I don't know who his source was, but, my lawyer called me up and he said, look, for 30 years I've been doing this. I've never talked to the press. I hate the press. I despise them. And he said,
Good reason.
Right. And he said, but he says, in this case, I think this actually, may be a necessary, evil that we need to do here. And so I didn't want to talk to him. So, he said he would be willing to talk to the reporter on my behalf and relate information. So the interview was with my lawyer. Mm-hmm. And so I gave him permission. He gave him the story. And the next day, the story broke. And, or it might have even been later that night, actually. I don't remember. But, man, my whole world changed after that moment. I mean, you talk about, I don't think anybody realizes just how much anonymity is just what a wonderful thing that is to have.
Oh yeah.
As soon as you make international news overnight, it changes your entire life. I remember, I think I was in shock for a while. I kept waking up, and it started right after I got raided and continued on for about maybe 6 months. I remember I kept waking up in the middle of the night, and and I'd wake up thinking, was I just having a nightmare?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd realize, oh no, this is real. It was like this, almost like this out of body experience. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just like your stress levels are probably off the roof, and I'm sure my blood pressure was up there.
Absolutely.
But because after the story came out, then the next question was, somebody going to try to have me killed, mm-hmm. somebody going to try to take me out. And so, I ended up ordering, a vest, I ended up, putting in surveillance cameras and just doing all this stuff to secure our property. My lawyer ended up getting having some protection team come up here. And these are guys like ex-special forces and, Navy SEAL type guys. They did an assessment, for safety and to look at our property and what we needed to do. And so we implemented a lot of different things to keep me safe. And I don't know for certain, but I had 2 incidences in the last 2 years, okay, where I ended up in the emergency room with very strange symptoms that appeared to be, maybe caused by poisoning. Mm-hmm. One of them was I had all the symptoms of heart attack and chest pains and that sort of thing. And I went and I had every conceivable test you can have done, everything from nuclear stress test to a calcium score to a Doppler cardiogram, and they did everything. EKGs, they found nothing. In fact, the doctor was shocked because she was like, I don't know how this is even possible, but your arteries are completely clear. You don't have any plaque at all. I mean, I'm not exactly the best, healthiest weight that I'm supposed to be, but at that time, she was like, you should have plaque in your arteries. You don't have any. And so she said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And so, there was no explanation for it. And eventually the symptoms went away. And then about 6 months later, or maybe it was even longer, one day I was walking out to my car, and my car was in a parking garage, but the parking garage door is open. So during the day, anybody, and this is down in DC, anybody could walk down there, and there's no cameras around. And so I I walk out to my car, and it's a nice sunny day. There was no rain or anything like that, but I reached under my door handle, and it was wet under my door handle.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, I didn't think about it. At the time, I'm just like, oh, gross. I thought somebody spit on my car or, spilled something on it, or something, maybe dripped or whatever from, a sprinkler or something. And so I didn't think much of it. But about 3-4 hours later, I started having stroke symptoms. And I ended up having to go. I went to my doctor's, my regular doctor's office. And the doctor did a whole bunch of tests, and they did an ataxia test. And they said, you're having all the symptoms of a stroke. We need you to go to the emergency room immediately. So went to the emergency room. They did a EKG, MRI, MRA. Nothing came back. Came back. Everything came back negative. But I had symptoms that lasted for like 4 days. They wanted me to follow up because they didn't see anything. So they had me follow up with a neurologist. So I met with one of the best neurologists in Washington, D.C. And he did all those same tests, except he added EEG, MRA, MRI with contrast. And so like I've got pictures now of like all of my veins and arteries and everything. He said same thing. After all of those tests, they even were looking at the electrical signals, maybe where this thing that measures all these electrical signals in your brain. And he came back and he says, look, I'm scratching my head. He says, I've been doing this, for 50 years or whatever. And he says, I can't tell you what's caused, your symptoms, but I couldn't walk a straight line without falling over to the right.
Oh, wow.
Without losing my balance. And eventually it took, I want to say probably about a week for all the symptoms to go away. At first, the neurological, symptoms of or I should say the balance issues were the kind of like the first thing to kind of go away. But I still had trouble thinking and formulating words and full sentences and stuff for about a week. And, so I had some latent stuff that lasted about 2 weeks, and then it was gone completely. So
thank God.
I reached out to a poison expert, and these are guys that do forensic analysis, and they do it for like the FBI and for other law enforcement agencies. I told him about all the symptoms that I had and about the liquid I had come in contact with, and he named off about 17 different substances that are colorless, odorless, that just touching them alone will cause all the symptoms that I had and will not show up on any of the tests that I had. So, I don't know, to this day if it was related, to something like that or not. But the interesting fact is that both those incidences occurred right after I had interviewed with somebody, and they had asked me, are you writing a book? And I said, yeah, I'm thinking about writing a book.
Really?
So wow. I am now if anybody asks, I am not writing a book. I have no desire to write a book. I'm never writing a book about any of this.
Oh, man. Nate, well, listen, bud, we are already over time. I just need to say thank you to Corgi Patriot. Also, thank you to Janie, David, and Rana and Merle. Rana asks, wanted to know if Nate knows Robin Gritz. So you do know Robin Gritz. I had the pleasure of meeting her yesterday when she came to Houston for a MAGA Drag the Interstate ride and a Back the Blue rally. Afterwards, we went to her brewery, and I got to sit and talk with her for a while. I meant to ask if she knows Nate, but we talked about so much, I never got to it. But yes, you are friends with Robin Gritz, right?
We're friends. This whistleblowing thing, once my name kind of went out there.
Yeah.
I've been reached out to by so many different whistleblowers. I've met so many wonderful, great people who've had their lives, completely just totally upturned and due to whistleblowing. And Robin Gritz is one of them. She's one of the good ones. She's was an FBI agent, and she blew the whistle on some things there, and they just destroyed her career. And she's still trying to, luckily some things have started to turn around in her favor now, I think, and she's loving her new job and everything, but she had to move and, but a great person. And she's been a good person for me to be able to talk to and just kind of run things by her about the way the FBI operates and stuff. And when I talked to her about all the stuff that was going on, I'm like, is this normal? She goes, yeah, they're messing with you.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get you agitated and, hoping that you, do something or say something, and they're messing with you. That's what they're doing. So
Well, I've been wanting to have Robin on the show for a while, so hopefully we can make that happen. But listen, I appreciate you being here with us, Nate, and appreciate you going over as well. Everybody was riveted. Incredible stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us tonight. Still got 6,400 people here, 4,133 likes. Please consider leaving a like on the way out the door. Appreciate all of the mods for keeping the chat comfy. Thank you to everybody who hung out with us tonight. Thank you to everybody who supported the channel and who continues to on a daily basis. I will be back tomorrow around 6 p.m. for another edition of Red Pill News. Hopefully there's going to be some other news breaking, like, say, perhaps President Trump making a full recovery due to the miracle cure that they're keeping from the public until tonight. All right, Nate, thanks again one more time for being here. Where would you like people to go to find you?
Probably the easiest way to find me is on Twitter. I keep myself, I Twitter every day because I end up having police show up at my house if I don't. I had a Twitter follower who called the police, actually had them come out in my house and do a well check on me when I didn't tweet for 24 hours. So you can always find out what I'm thinking and what's going on. And I'm always giving commentary, especially about anything related to the intelligence community or surveillance or the FBI or this, Uranium One stuff. So you can find me at Cain, CAIN_Nate. And, if any of you guys are in the Florida, Miami, Florida area next week, or I should say this week, the 8th to the 11th, I'm going to be speaking at AmFest 2020. And so, a great opportunity to meet me in person and to hear me speak and talk more about my whistleblowing experience. So you can go to AmericanPriority.com. And if you put in for your code, you put in Cain, CAIN, you'll get $45 off, to get into the event. But it's going to be at the Trump Dorel Hotel in Miami, Florida. So I'm really looking forward to that and looking forward to opportunity to be able to meet some really neat people and, that have the same values and same desire to see our country be successful. So I want to thank everybody, on this channel for giving me an opportunity to, share my story with you guys. And I know many of you guys, pray for me and my family. And I can't tell you how much, that means to us. And it's really been, an amazing thing to see, the American people pull together, to show their support, and has really blessed my family, not just me, but my wife and my kids as well, to know that there's people out there that give a damn, about, folks like myself that, have been put in these, circumstances. So thank you guys so much. And God bless you guys.
All right, awesome. And if anybody knows a good hotel in the Miami area that's not going to gouge me, maybe I'll catch a plane down there this weekend and come see you there, Nate. All right, you guys. All right, thanks again, Nate, for being here. Thanks, everybody, for chilling out. Method's already had to go. He had DoorDash at the door, so we're going to leave it there. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6. Good luck, and God bless.